The woman dragged the pine log uphill alone, boots slipping, breath smoking in the late October air, rope biting into her shoulder. From the ridge above, Eli Carter reined in his bay gelding and watched. The wind cut through his coat, sharp as a knife, but she climbed like she didn't feel the cold at all. That log was long and thick, the kind two grown men would cuss about dragging. She just dug in harder. Her dress, once blue, was faded and mud-stained. Her hair was braided back in a no-nonsense rope. Her hands were raw. What caught him wasn't the work. Out here in Wyoming territory, everybody worked till they broke. What caught him was that she was doing it alone. No wagon, no partner, just a half-framed cabin behind her and a sagging canvas tent. Eli clicked his tongue and nudged his horse down the slope. As he rode closer, the little clearing opened up, half-built walls barely chest-high, no roof, tools scattered in the dirt, a small campfire struggling against the wind. It looked less like a homestead and more like a stubborn argument with the wilderness. She heard his horse, straightened and turned. Didn't call for help, just planted her feet, one hand still on the rope, the other hovering near a hatchet stuck in a stump. Chin up. Eyes clear. "Afternoon," Eli said, swinging down from the saddle. His voice was steady, easy. "That's a lot of cabin for one person. I don't take charity from strangers." Her voice was rough, tired, but it didn't shake. Her fingers stayed wrapped around the rope like she might use it as a weapon if she had to. Eli let his gaze sweep the walls, measuring angles by habit. "Those cross beams'll twist in the first serious wind. Roof won't hold a real storm." She looked past him to the horizon. "Storm's already here, mister. Just ain't snow yet." He studied her face properly now. That's when he saw it. A pale scar, starting at her right cheekbone and running down to her jaw. Old, but harsh. The kind of mark folks stared at and pretended not to. "Fire?" he asked quietly. Her shoulders tensed at his eyes on the scar. "I know what I look like," she muttered defensively. "Don't worry, I'm not here to scare your cattle." Eli met her gaze unbothered. "Looks to me like you survived something that tried hard to kill you. That's not a bad thing in my book." She blinked once, twice. Pause. Nobody had put it that way before. "What's your name?" he asked. "Mae Collins." "Eli Carter," he said, tipping his hat. "I run cattle 5 miles west of here. Been watching this cabin climbing out of the dirt for weeks." "If you're here to tell me it's foolish, I'm busy." He snorted softly. "Ma'am, I run cows in blizzards and argue with bankers for fun. I ain't got room to call anyone else foolish." He nodded to the log. "You got nails?" She hesitated, then jerked her chin toward a wooden crate near the tent. "Some. Bought 'em with the last of my coin. I can help brace the walls, get you a roof that doesn't fall on your head when the wind gets ugly. I told you, I don't need—" "I'm not offering charity," he cut in. "I'm offering a trade. You cook a hot meal once a day, patch my shirts when they rip. I'll help you get this place standing before the first real snow." She studied him like a man might be a trap. "You always make deals with strangers?" "Only with the stubborn ones dragging entire trees up a hill by themselves," Eli said. "You're clearly too hard-headed to quit. Might as well not die doing it." A beat of silence. Wind hissed through the pines. "Fine," Mae said at last. "Work for supper. That's it. Fair enough." They shook on it. Her hand was rough, calloused, and as firm as any ranch hand's. As Eli turned to his horse, Mae released the rope and sagged onto a stump. Out of his sight, her hands shook. First snow in maybe 2 weeks. First help in almost a year. She wasn't sure which scared her more. And somewhere above them, clouds stacked dark on the horizon, like the sky itself was holding its breath. The next day, Eli showed up at first light. He didn't knock or shout, just set his horse's reins on a branch and went straight to the lumber. Mae was already up, tending the fire, coffee boiling in a blackened pot that had seen better years. He walked the perimeter of the cabin, testing joints, shifting beams. Everything about the camp told him the same thing this woman planned. Cut boards stacked by size, nails separated in small tins, tools cleaned even when worn. "You do clean work," Eli said, squinting along a beam. "Taught myself," Mae replied, handing him a dented tin cup. "After my husband died, I figured nobody else was going to save me. The coffee was strong enough to melt a spoon, but Eli drank without complaint. Lot of widows in Red Creek," he said. "Most of 'em stay closer to town. Why'd you buy land all the way out here?" Her jaw flexed. She stared into the fire. "The man who runs the general store, Vernon Hale, you know him?" Eli's mouth thinned. "Unfortunately. After my husband passed, he said I needed protection, a roof, a man to control my money since numbers are heavy for a woman's mind." Her lip curled. "When I told him I'd rather sleep in the dirt, he didn't take kindly." "What'd he do?" Eli asked, voice low. He started talking. Mae's voice went flat. "Said I burned my own house for insurance that never came. Said I was cursed. Bad luck, trouble. Folks like stories more than truth." They listened. She touched her scar without thinking. "What really happened?" Eli asked, not looking away. She swallowed. The fire popped. "We lost a baby," she said. "My husband, Joel, took to the bottle after. Got mean with it. One night he came home drunker than usual. Dinner was cold, and that was enough." She stared at the dirt as if the scene was burned into it. "He shoved me. Lamp fell. Kerosene everywhere. Flames climbed faster than we could think." Her chest rose and fell shakily. "I tried to drag him out," she whispered. "He hid me away, hid me into the fire." She touched her scar again, fingers trembling. Wall collapsed. "I got out." "He didn't." Eli said nothing, just listened. "Town buried him like a saint," Mae said. "Buried me in rumors. Easier to blame the woman with the scars than admit their favorite church deacon beat his wife." "Sounds about right," Eli muttered. "Religious folks can be real talented at pretending." She blinked at him. She'd expected pity, or disgust, not quiet agreement. "So I sold what little I had left," Mae said. "Found this patch of land no one else wanted. Figured if I'm going to live alone, might as well be where the whispering can't follow me." "What about you?" she asked suddenly. "Ranch that size, house I can see from the hill on a clear day. You should have a wife and a string of kids." Eli shifted his weight. "Set the cup down. Had a wife," he said. "Lena. She was beautiful. Sharp, loved attention, loved town, loved being Mrs. Carter's more than being with me." He took a slow breath. "She got pregnant. Complications. Neither she nor the baby made it." "I'm sorry," Mae said softly. "Yeah," Eli answered. "Me too, but if I'm honest," he stared at the pines. "My first thought after the doctor walked out was, it's quiet now. I'd spent years feeling like I was never enough, like I was just the man behind her dresses." His voice was barely above a whisper. "Been hating myself for that thought ever since." Mae studied him, seeing more than the broad shoulders and easy hands, seeing the regret lodged deep. "Maybe wanting real peace isn't a sin," she said quietly. "Maybe staying in a life that's killing you is." Eli let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "You sound like my old foreman." "Smart man," Mae said. They fell into a rhythm after that. Days blurred into the sound of hammering and saws. Mae measured boards while Eli cut. He held beams steady while she set nails. They spoke in short sentences that stretched longer over time. Jokes slipped out, tiny ones at first. One afternoon, as sleet started to fall, Eli said, "You read much?" Mae wiped her hands and reached into her trunk. She pulled out 3 books, spine cracked and smoke-stained. Robinson Crusoe, a book of Whitman's poems, and this one survived the fire. She lifted a singed Bible. "Figured if anything walked through flames with me, I should keep it." "You read all that?" Eli asked, half impressed, half teasing. "More than once." She smiled, just a little. "I can read out loud while we work inside, once the walls are tight. Could even teach you if letters give you trouble." He chuckled. "I know enough to read a bill and not get cheated. Anything beyond that, I fake." "I can fix that," Mae said. "If you fix this roof, deal." The nights grew colder. One evening, wind picked up fast. The sky went from gray to steel in minutes. Eli squinted upward. "This isn't just a flurry," he said. "We've got a real blizzard brewing. You should ride home," Mae said quickly. "Road'll disappear." "Too late for that," Eli answered, securing a tarp over the unfinished roof. Snow already stung his cheeks. "I'm staying here. One night. Might need extra hands if the wind goes after these walls." Mae's face went blank. "Guarded. There's only one blanket," she said. He shrugged. "We'll stack every coat we've got, stay by the fire, and not be stupid about it. I'm not here to bother you." By nightfall, the world outside howled. They huddled by the small fire inside the half-finished cabin, tarp flapping overhead, snow sneaking in through gaps. The blanket draped across both their shoulders. They didn't touch, but his warmth was a solid presence beside her. Mae opened Robinson Crusoe, fingers careful on the brittle pages. "Ready for some shipwrecks, cowboy?" she asked. "Hit me," Eli said, smirking. She read aloud. Her voice turned the cramped, cold room into an ocean and a shoreline and a desperate hope. Eli listened like a man who'd never had stories before. Somewhere near midnight, her head tipped sideways and landed against his shoulder. She jerked awake halfway, then didn't move. Neither did he. At dawn, she stirred, realized where she was, and pulled back, face hot with embarrassment. I must have fallen asleep." "Yeah," Eli said gently. "Worst thing you did all night was snore once. I do not snore. You do a little," he teased. Any reply died in her throat when he stepped toward the open doorway. His expression shifted. "What is it?" she asked, rising. Eli crouched, studying the snow. Tracks, 3, maybe 4 horses. They rode circles around the cabin during the storm. "Who rides in a blizzard?" Mae whispered. "Someone who cares more about other people's business than their own," Eli muttered. They stood side by side in the raw morning light, staring out at the white world. Somewhere out there, eyes had been watching them through the night. And gossip, unlike snow, didn't melt away. 2 weeks later, the cabin stood solid. Roof on, chimney working, windows sealed against the wind. Inside, they'd built bunks, a small table, shelves for her books. Outside, a rough fence line marked the future garden. They'd fallen into something that looked a lot like home. Every evening, Mae read while Eli mended tack or tried to sound out words with her patient corrections. Sometimes he cooked. Sometimes she teased him about how much salt he used. Sometimes they just sat quiet, listening to the crackle of the fire like it was the only sound in the world. But tracks kept showing up outside. Once, a small mark in the mud where someone had laid down to look through the window. Mae saw it, lips tightening. "Hale?" she murmured. "Or someone working for him. Let him watch," Eli said. "They can't change what we're doing." She wished she believed that. A week before Christmas, Mae wrapped a scarf tight around her throat. "I'm going to town with you," she told Eli as he hitched the wagon. He frowned. "Red Creek's not kind to you." "I know," she said. "I'm tired of being a rumor people whisper about. They can say whatever they want, but they're going to have to say it to my face." So they rode into town together. Red Creek was little more than a wide street and a church steeple, but it had the weight of judgment like a big city. They arrived just as Sunday service let out. Bells were still echoing when Mae stepped down from the wagon, chin high, scarf loose enough that her scar showed in the winter light. Others looked too long. Pastor Gibbons stepped forward from the church steps, flanked by Vernon Hale and 3 church elders. "Brother Carter," the pastor called, voice carrying over the street, "you bring troubled company to our town." Eli felt his stomach clench. Mae's shoulder brushed his arm, steady and solid. "This woman," Gibbons went on, "is known for sin and scandal. You shame yourself, your late wife's memory, and this community by keeping improper arrangements with her." Hale stepped down beside him, fake sympathy smeared across his face like cheap paint. "Mae," he drawled, "I told you before. You could have had a clean room and safe work at my boarding house. Instead, you've chosen this, living alone with a man, unwed. You're dragging him into your disgrace." The crowd pressed in, hungry for a scene. Mae went rigid. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. For a moment she was back in the burning house, smoke in her lungs, everyone yelling except the one man who should have stood beside her. Eli felt a familiar panic rise. The old instinct, keep things calm, avoid scandal, keep your name clean. He saw faces he'd known for years. Neighbors, customers, his banker, the widows who'd been flirting at every church supper, all of them watching, judging. "It's just work," Eli heard himself say. The words tasted like ash the second they left his mouth. "I'm just helping her finish the cabin before winter hits hard. That's all, nothing more." Silence fell heavy. Mae's world tilted. Just work. The night's reading. The laughter that had sneaked back into her chest. The quiet, steady presence in the dark when nightmares chased her. All of it, flattened into two small, cowardly words. Hale smiled like a wolf. "See?" he said, voice oily. "Even he won't claim you, Mae Collins. You're not worth the trouble." She turned without a word and walked back to the wagon. Didn't look at Eli, didn't look at anyone. She climbed up, hands steady, face dead calm. The ride home was silent. Snow started drifting down again, soft and mocking. At the cabin, she stepped off the wagon and spoke with her back to him. "Our deal's done," she said. "Cabin stands. You've got every shirt mended. I don't owe you anything. Don't come back, Eli." "Mae?" She closed the door he'd hung. Right in his face, he stood there, breath fogging, listening to the quiet inside. Then he turned and climbed back onto the wagon, feeling every mile between that door and the man he wanted to be. Christmas week came in cold and bright. Eli sat alone in his big ranch house, staring at the frost on the windows. Lena's grave was visible on the hill, a little stone marker against the white. The house was perfect, solid beams, polished floors, everything in its right place. And empty as a coffin. He'd done it again. Chosen comfort over courage, reputation over truth. He'd loved a woman who cared more about appearances than honesty. And now, when he'd finally found someone real, someone scarred and strong and painfully honest, he'd thrown that away in front of a crowd. He poured whiskey into a glass, stared at it, didn't drink. 3 miles away, Mae worked by lamplight, alone. She patched the last drafts in the walls, fixed the door latch, started a rough fence where someday a garden would grow. Her hands moved automatically. Her thoughts, though, were empty. She'd let herself hope. That was her mistake. Men always disappointed you in the end, even the good ones, especially the good ones. Their failures cut deeper. On the step lay a small tin basin, filled with water that had frozen in the night. Stuck in the ice were winter wildflowers, dried, stiff, their colors trapped and bright against the clear frozen sheet. She recognized them from a meadow near Eli's ranch. No note, no name, just a quiet apology solidified in ice. Mae picked it up with both hands and carried it inside, sat at her small table, stared at the fragile petals. And finally, she cried. Not pretty tears, not soft ones, harsh, aching sobs for everything she'd lost and for the thing she'd almost had. That afternoon, an old man in a battered coat rode up to Eli's ranch. Hank Doyle, the man who taught Eli how to rope, how to judge weather, how to fix a saddle with 2 nails and a prayer. "You look like you've been chewed up and spit out by a sick mule," Hank said, not bothering with hello. "Feel worse?" Eli answered. "Good," Hank grunted, swinging off his horse. "Means you still got a conscience." He stepped closer, eyes sharp. "That woman out there, Mae, she's built more with busted fingers and bad luck than most men build with every advantage in the world." "You blind?" Eli rubbed his jaw. "I screwed up, Hank." "Yep." Hank didn't soften. "You got a pattern, boy. Your wife wanted fancy, wanted town to clap for her. You let other people's opinions run your house until it killed both of you, just different ways." Eli flinched. "And now," Hank went on, "you found someone who doesn't give a damn about fancy. She wants real, solid. You tell your truth one time in public and you'd have something that lasts. Instead, you chose the comfortable lie again." "What if she doesn't forgive me?" Eli asked, voice rough. Then that's what you earned, Hank said bluntly. Forgiveness ain't owed to you, but you still get to choose what kind of man you're going to be from here on out. Hank jerked his chin toward the town. Red Creek's got a church, yeah? A place where folks sit and nod while pretending they're better than they are? Eli nodded slowly. Good, Hank said. Then you know where to start telling the truth. He climbed back on his horse and rode away, leaving Eli standing in the thin winter sunshine, feeling very small and very clear. The next Sunday, Eli Carter walked straight past the church pew he usually took in the back and stood at the front, hat in hand, facing the entire congregation. "I'm here," he said, voice steady but loud enough to carry, to confess, "and to set some things right about Mae Collins." Murmurs rippled through the room. Mae was on the cabin roof when she heard the hoofbeats. She'd climbed up there herself with a hammer clenched in stubborn fingers, determined to shingle the last stretch alone. If he wasn't going to stand by her, then he didn't get to stand under her roof either. Hooves crunched in the snow below. She recognized the sound of his gelding but didn't look down. Just kept hammering. "Morning," Eli called. Mae said nothing. He dismounted, picked up the spare hammer, and climbed the ladder without asking permission. The two of them worked on opposite ends of the roof in silence. Nails thudded. Shingles slid into place. Breath fogged the cold air. Finally, the last shingle went down. The roof was done. They sat on the ridgeline, boots braced, the valley stretching out below. Sky wide and painfully blue. Cabin solid beneath them. Eli rested his hammer in his lap. "I went to church this morning," he said, stood up in front of everybody. Mae's jaw tightened, but she kept her eyes on the mountains. "I told them about my wife," he continued, "about how I cared more about looking like a good husband than actually being one. How I let her hunger for appearances chew us both up." Mae said nothing, waiting. "I told them what I did to you in that street," Eli said quietly. "How I called this," he gestured around them. "Just work when it's the truest thing I've had in years. I told them if they wanted to judge someone, they could start with me." He swallowed. "I told them you built a life out of ashes while they were busy throwing stones. Told them your scar is from trying to save a man who'd already given up on being decent. Told them if they thought less of you, they'd damned well think less of me, too." Mae slowly turned to look at him. "I'm not good with words," Eli admitted. "I proved that clear last week. But I'm trying to be honest, finally." He met her eyes. "I want to build something with you, Mae. Not pretty, not easy, just real." Her gaze searched his face. Lines of weather, worry, regret, and that quiet steadiness she'd come to lean on. "I don't need rescuing," she said. "Never did." "I know," he said. "I know," he said. "I'm not trying to rescue you. I'm asking if you'll let me be your partner. Equal share." "You'll..." "Equal, say. You keep your name, your land, your books. I just want to be here, with you, if you'll have me." He held out his hand. No drama, just a worker's hand, offered like a contract. Mae looked at it for a long time. Then she took it. "Deal," she said. He let out a breath that shook. When he leaned closer, he didn't rush. He searched her face for permission. She nodded, just a fraction. Their first kiss was careful, trembling. Not a firestorm, but a small flame protected by cupped hands. When they pulled back, a sound on the road below made them both look up. Dust and snow rose as wagons approached, a line of them snaking up the trail. "What now?" Mae asked, frowning. Eli said. "Some folks started looking mighty uncomfortable. Remembering they're supposed to be better than the rumors they spread." He squinted toward the road. "Looks like they decided to do more than say sorry." The first wagon rolled into the clearing, then another and another. Men jumped down with bundles of lumber, fence posts, tools. Women climbed out with covered dishes and sacks of flour. Kids tumbled into the snow, curious eyes wide. Pastor Gibbons walked up, hat in hand, looking like he'd swallowed a nail. "Miss Collins," he said haltingly, "I misjudged you. I listened to gossip instead of truth. I'm sorry." Mae crossed her arms. You listened because it was easier than asking me yourself. He nodded, shamefaced. You're right. Hale slunk behind the others, hat low, trying to blend into the background. Mae spotted him instantly. Mr. Hale, she called. He froze. I don't hate you, she said evenly. But I see you now. Clear as day. You saw a woman alone and figured you owned her choices. You don't. Not now. Not ever. His cheeks flushed. I came to— Doesn't matter why you came, Mae cut in. There'll be no more business between us. No boarding house, no supplies on credit. I'll pay cash in town, and you'll treat me like every other paying customer. Or I'll take my money elsewhere. Understand? His mouth opened and closed. Yes, ma'am, he muttered. She turned away from him like he was already part of the past. Behind her, the wagon crowd spread out, unloading boards, measuring ground for a barn, staking lines for a corral. The town that had once watched from a distance now bent their backs side by side with her. Eli picked up a post-hole digger. Looks like they want to help build your barn. Our barn, Mae corrected. He smiled, slow and real. Our barn. Winter crawled toward spring. Days were still cold, but the light lingered a little longer. The barn rose beside the cabin, beams locked together by many hands. Children scattered wildflower seeds near the fence line. Mae baked bread and traded recipes with women who'd once pulled their kids away from her shadow. Eli didn't move in. Not yet. He rode home most nights, respecting her need for space she'd fought so hard to claim. But he showed up every dawn, bringing coffee and feed, ready to work. One early March morning, Mae woke to sunlight spilling through windows Eli had fitted perfectly straight. Frost still edged the glass, but the air felt different, softer, full of something like promise. She stepped out onto the porch. Eli was asleep in the chair by the banked fire, boots crossed, hat tipped over his eyes. He'd stayed late the night before, fixing the squeaky hinge, then reading aloud in his halting, careful way until she'd fallen asleep smiling. She watched him for a moment. This man who had chosen, finally, truth over comfort, who'd stood up in front of the town and burned his own polished image to the ground so he could build something honest in its place. He stirred, sensing her eyes on him, and smiled. "Morning," he rasped. "Morning," she answered. They made breakfast together, eggs from her new hens, biscuits from flour the town ladies had brought. Coffee so strong it made Mae cough and Eli grin. They spent the morning side by side in the dirt, planting carrots and beans, potatoes and onions. Mae tucked a handful of wildflower seeds along the edges. "For color," she said, shrugging. "For you," Eli replied. Around noon, a rider approached. Vernon Hale, hat in hand, shoulders slumped. "Miss Collins, Mr. Carter," he said stiffly. "I wanted to apologize for the things I said, for the way I behaved." Mae looked at him calmly. "You wanted control. I said no. You tried to ruin me for it. That about right?" He swallowed. "Yes, ma'am. I'm not interested in revenge," she said. "But I'm also not interested in pretending nothing happened. I'll live my life. You live yours, and we keep a respectful distance." He nodded, relieved. Maybe humbled. "That's fair." As he turned to go, Mae added, "And next time you talk about an honest woman, make sure you mean honesty, not obedience." He flinched, tipped his hat, and rode away. The past was still there, but it no longer owned her. That evening, the sky turned gold and pink over the mountains. Eli and Mae sat on the porch, shoulders almost touching, watching the world change colors. Eli cleared his throat. "Mae." "Yeah? Marry me," he said quietly. "Not because town expects it, not because of reputation, just because I want to stand beside you when storms come, all of them." She looked at him, eyes soft, guarded, hopeful all at once. "I'm not ready yet," she admitted. "There's still pieces of me catching up to this life we're building." He nodded immediately. "Then I'll wait." She smiled. "Ask me again when those wildflowers bloom full. I want to say yes when the world looks as alive as I finally feel." "Deal," he said. They sat in comfortable silence as the first stars pricked holes in the dark. Behind them, the cabin stood sturdy. Every board and nail told a story of shared effort. The barn beside it promised calves in spring, hay in the loft, long days of honest work. In the meadow, tiny green shoots poked through the thawing ground where children had scattered seeds. Soon, it would be a riot of color. Eli glanced over at her. "You know," he said slowly, "you're beautiful." Mae's hand drifted to her scar. "Have it. I'm marked," she said. "That's different." He shook his head. "No. That scar says you fought your way out of hell and walked on anyway. That's the kind of beautiful nobody can fake." Her eyes shone, but she didn't look away. Night settled around them, but for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like something to be afraid of. It felt like a blanket. And in that quiet, as the mountains watched like patient old sentries and the cold finally started to loosen its grip on the land, something new rooted itself in both of them. Not perfect love, not storybook peace, something better, something stronger, honest. Out on the far edge of Red Creek, a scarred woman and a winter-hardened rancher built more than a cabin. They built a life board by board, choice by choice, truth by hard-won truth. They learned that pretty words and polished reputations blow away like dust in a strong wind, but steady hands, honest apologies, and small brave steps, those are the things that hold when the blizzards hit. Mae didn't magically forget the night she woke up afraid. Eli didn't suddenly stop feeling the weight of his past mistakes. The town didn't turn perfect overnight, but they planted seeds anyway, in the garden, in each other, in a place that used to feel like exile and now finally felt like home. And when the wildflowers did bloom, splashing color against the rough fence and the weathered wood, it was proof of one simple truth: broken doesn't mean finished. Scarred doesn't mean unlovable. And starting over doesn't mean you failed. It means you're still trying. Because no matter how cold the winter, no matter how loud the gossip or how heavy the past,